All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV, and our main website where you can listen to the X Zone 724 365 is www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is LeRoy Blveins, Sr. He was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. He now resides in Cynthiana, Kentucky with his family. Now, at a very young age, LeRoy had a passion for research. The first research he started was on Noah's Ark, and it became a lasting research for him. Then by 1985, LeRoy started to do an investigation into stories from the Bible. By 1987, he started to analyze films and images and restoring image and film for friends and relatives. Then by early 1900, LeRoy began Blveins Research that was later changed to Blveins Biblical Investigations in the late year of 2008. In 1990, with all his hard work, he made the biggest discovery of all time. He uncovered the true story of Noah's Ark and the Great Flood, and has found the true location of mysteries in history, including Noah's Ark. Joining me now is LeRoy Blveins. And LeRoy, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you for having me.
It's great having you with us. So have you always been a curious person, always trying to solve the unsolved or research the greatest mysteries on Earth?
At first it didn't start out that way, but as I go on, as the years go by, it just got more and more intrigued in finding, going over these biggest mysteries like the Zodiac Killer, Amelia Earhart, JFK, Bigfoot, UFOs. It intrigues me that there's a lot of information, a lot of evidence out there. It's not being brought to light.
How different is the research that you have conducted to the stories as they're portrayed in the Bible? For example, Noah's flood.
Mm-hmm.
How different is...
Okay.
Go on.
How different is Noah's flood?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, what we're told in the story of Noah, that Noah and his son built the ark, and that the townspeople came and ridiculed, mocked Noah and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in my studies, to come to find out that Noah had other people build the ark for him because his sons weren't even actually old enough or even born at the time when he started the ark. Then, when I was going over the story of the flood, I found out that, by the timelines, Noah's father passed away 5 years before the flood. Noah's grandfather died during the flood. And when I started digging into other stories of the Great Flood, come to find out there was actually, in the time of Noah, there was actually 12 arks built, and that's not the one ark.
12 arks, wow. Where did the story in the Bible, in your opinion, go wrong then? Why hasn't the truth been revealed?
Well, the story that we're told in the Bible just tells you the bloodline of the Hebrews.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, the other stories tells you bloodlines of the other people. Just like if we read the Bible, if you read in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, God said, "Let us make man."
Right.
Okay, which he's talking to others with him, that he was going to make man and they was going to make man. And he says, out of our images and our likenesses, also indicating that they didn't look alike. And then when the time of the flood came along, God says, "I'm going to remove off the earth what I have made," but he was leaving what everybody else has made.
So, in your opinion, based on the research that you've done, who was God?
God is God, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And which we find his name in the Bible when you read it, because like in the commandments, okay, don't use the Lord's name in vain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in Exodus chapter 35, verse 14, it says in that verse there, for the Lord whose name is jealous is a jealous God.
Ah. So the name of God isn't Yahweh, it's not Jehovah, but it's jealous?
Yes. Jehovah
Mm-hmm.
was Jesus' first name. That's when Jehovah came in. It was supposed to be in Jesus.
I gotcha. All right, stand by, LeRoy. You and I have to take our first commercial break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Exo Nation, our special guest this hour is LeRoy Blveins Sr., and the website is jfkreport.weebly.com, and LeRoy and I will be back on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break as we continue right here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Exo Nation, welcome back. LeRoy Blveins is my special guest this hour. www.jfkreport.weebly.com. What other stories in the Bible, LeRoy, have you been able to decipher or re-research that differ from the accounts that we find in the Bible?
Well, I've discovered a true location of the Garden of Eden. The story of the Ark of the Covenant, which holds the Ten Commandments, actually was 2 arks made.
Mm-hmm.
One made by Bezalel, and the other one was made by Moses.
Now, Bezalel, was that the name of the devil?
No.
No?
Bezalel was a man of God that God put which basically he built the ark, and he also built the tabernacle, where they were supposed to carry the ark in.
Mm-hmm.
And the pieces that Moses broke when he came down from Mount Sinai, the pieces he broke, they placed in that ark, and they carried it around for a while until God made a new set, because on the original set there was actually 17 commandments that had writing on both sides of the tablets.
Mm-hmm.
But then when Moses received the second set of tablets, it just had the 10 commandments with just writing on one side.
Let me ask you, LeRoy, why is there so much controversy when it comes to the Bible, what it stands for, what the back philosophy is, if we're in the end times, if the events that were talked about, the miracles in the Bible, really happened? Why do you think we have all this controversy even today in the 21st century?
Well, that's always been in man. They're always trying to look for an answer. There's always an explanation for everything that's under the sun. There's a reason why the trees grow. There's a reason why the plants grow, and then they throw science in there with it, and they're trying to use it in different terms and trying to figure out every which way they can, just like today they're trying to clone people and everything else.
Wow.
And people just don't want to accept that there actually was a God. They want to accept like there's 1,000 gods.
So when we look at the number of gods, it looks like the Greeks and the Romans were on the right track?
Yes. But see, there's actually only one true God, even in the Bible and other stories. There's only one true God. It's just basically what we're made from was from God's angels.
I see. Fascinating research. How many years would you say the research that you've done into the Bible to bring you to the conclusion that you've come to have taken you?
Well, I've been studying for 29 years, and I'm actually still doing research on it.
Incredible. Let's talk about the Patterson film, the famous Bigfoot film. What's your opinion of that?
To me, it was a hoax because of the things I found, but that's my opinion, but it's also gathered by the evidence that I found and that I have and that I could show. Just like a lot of researchers says, well, no one can make a suit like that. that you see in the film. Well, I'm not no costume maker, but I actually made a suit like that.
Yeah,
I actually got pictures of me. Go ahead.
I agree with you when it comes to the Patterson film. I've never, ever given it any credibility whatsoever. Roger Patterson himself had a very checkered past. You know, and this was nothing that I would have ever put past him. It's just like Mitchell Hedges, the person who brought the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. He was another showman. He also had a checkered past. When you look at the truth compared to his story, two different stories. So once again. But something that I am very interested in is the JFK assassination. Let me ask you a very point-blank question. Who was the man behind the assassination of JFK?
The KGB.
How did you get to that conclusion?
All the evidence I collected and what I researched on, and how everything took place that day.
Mm-hmm. Why would the KGB want JFK dead?
Oh, it's easy, because they came. Well, at that time we was going through the Cold War, and we already went to war with them against Russia twice already. Against Germany, and during the Cold War, Kennedy went over there, and this is when they started building the wall, when Kennedy was over there. And he was trying to get peace amongst people. Plus, he was, also with the African Americans, everybody has equal rights and everything else.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't like that. So they figure, well, all we could do is we'll attack by taking out Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have Oswald say it's Cuba, put in everybody's mind that he's going for Cuba, and then turn around while we attack Cuba, they come in the back door after us.
Wow. So, how many shooters were there? Was Lee Harvey Oswald the only shooter?
No, there was actually 5.
Where were they?
Okay, there was Oswald was on the 6th floor Texas School Book Depository.
Right.
Then you had 2 gunmen on shelter number 3 on a grassy knoll was behind Mr. Zapruder. You had 1 gunman on the 2nd floor of the records building and another gunman on the rooftop of the records building.
Why, in your opinion, did the KGB select Dallas, Texas, to assassinate the president?
Well, I think there was another couple locations they was going to pick.
Mm-hmm.
But Oswald was actually running a lot of it. Because Oswald was a bright, intelligent man, but just people, act like he wasn't, but he really was. Because he was trying to take out General Walker months before he assassinated JFK.
Do you think that any of the powers to be in the United States government knew that there was a plot to assassinate President Kennedy and that the KGB was going to take their shot at him?
I think they did. That's why they was doing their cover-up.
So why do you think the government of the United States would, knowingly that there was an attempt or an assassination plot in progress to assassinate President Kennedy, not take the sufficient precautions in order to protect the president better?
Well, like I said, when you look at the government itself, they get death threats for presidents every day.
Yeah.
Some things they take serious, some things they don't. Well, when you look at Kennedy ran a lot of stuff, just like when he was in Dallas, Texas, and when he was in a couple other locations before he even came to Dallas, he told the Secret Service agents to stand down. He wanted people to be able to come to the car and touch him so he could shake his hands. Just like the motorcade route, when he was coming down Dallas, Texas, when he was coming down Main Street, he actually stopped and got out of the limo, walked over to people and started shaking their hands. But he said that if they was surrounding him, that would put the people nervous and they wouldn't want to come by him because they was afraid they was going to get hurt or something by the Secret Service agents. So it's actually a lot of mistakes was made by Kennedy himself.
Do you think that there was any aspect of the American intelligence agency or other government force that were in cahoots with the KGB in the assassination of President Kennedy?
know, because there's really no evidence to show that. I mean, there's people made a lot of claims about it.
Right.
But when you look at overall, just like when people pointed that Lyndon B. Johnson was behind it, and there's really no evidence to show that he really was, even though there's a story told by a mistress of his or somebody else, but we can't actually say that that was his mistress. We can't actually say that story is true because it's just a story. There's no real evidence behind it. Now, if there was a recording or one thing or another or pictures of him shaking hands with these assassins or something, then we can say, yeah, that's evidence. But when it's just a story, that's all we get.
What do we know about Lee Harvey Oswald? Was he married? Was he single?
No, he was married.
And
he had children.
Really? So what kind of guy was he based on your research?
Well, he was an ex-Marine, but then he went to Russia, moved to Russia, and they claim that he actually gave up his visa because he wanted to just live in Russia. He didn't want to come back to the United States. And they said, well, no, you can't do that. Well, he tried to cut his wrist and commit suicide because he didn't want to come back to the United States. So they went ahead and they said, well, okay, you can stay here. Well, after he met his wife, which his wife does work for the KGB, her parents and I think an uncle works for the KGB. They was part of the KGB. So after he met her and stuff, and then he decides, well, I'm going to move back to the United States. And that's when everything started taking shape right then and there.
Did at any time did Oswald have a mistress?
I've heard of it, and I know who you're talking about because I have talked to her myself because I'm friends with her on Facebook. But I really don't see no evidence in that because of the story that was told, like when, New Orleans. Well, Oswald started at that company on the 9th, but she states it was on the 10th, but he started on the 9th. And his wife was down there with them because Ruth Payne drove them down there in May. In May of that year, 63. Drove them down there in May, and then she picked them back up in September. So during the whole time that Oswald was in New Orleans, his wife was with him and his kids.
What was her name? Patty Baker?
No, it's Judith Van Baker.
Oh, I see, Judith Baker. Right. So did she make this story up that she was Oswald's lover?
I don't know because, like I said, I don't usually go into that kind of depth.
Right. Okay.
And the people because it's like another researcher. I won't talk bad about the research. It's just there's a lot of information that was mishandled.
Just like the president's body.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, LeRoy, please stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, LeRoy Blveins is our special guest this hour. Here's his website. It's jfkreport.weebly.com. That's jfkreport.weebly.com. And he's also the author of the JFK Assassination Report, 13 Shots, JFK Assassination Colorized Images, JFK Assassination Evidence or of Other Gunmen, and Who Murdered JFK. And we'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone with our special guest this hour, LeRoy Blveins Senior, as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. My special guest this hour is LeRoy Blveins Senior. Here's the website, jfkreport.weebly.com. And LeRoy, why do you think, here we are so many years after the great president's assassination, it is still one of the greatest mysteries going?
Because it was a mystery, it was never solved. that's why people are so interested into it even still today,
Mm-hmm.
because the way it was handled, and a lot of information was lost, and a lot of evidence was lost, and it left a big opening for 1,001 stories.
You know, the question is that if, and I'm not doubting your research, if in fact the KGB was responsible for the death of President Kennedy, why wouldn't the government pursue this? Why are they in fact protecting the KGB and their actions?
Because during that time, people don't understand, during that time, like I said, the Cold War was going on.
Right.
And to protect from World War III breaking out, they had to come up with something.
So was President Kennedy the sacrificial lamb?
Basically, yes.
But if President Johnson and his predecessors, up until President Obama today, are aware of these facts, why hasn't there been any accounting of Russia when it comes to the assassination of a president of the United States?
Because they're still got it based on, they're telling still the same old story of Oswald was a lone assassin,
Mm-hmm.
there was only 3 shots fired, and that's it. They know what actually took place, but there's a lot of presidents, after they sealed all the documents,
Mm-hmm.
now this was based on the Kennedys, not, Lyndon B. Johnson, nothing. The Kennedys is one had the documents sealed for 75 years.
All right, that's the Kennedy files. But what about the National Security Agency? What about the FBI? What about military intelligence? What about the Dallas Police Department? What about the CIA? There has to be collaborating evidence somewhere that could circumvent the sealing of the Kennedy papers.
Well, like I said, they only put so much out to the people, but see, what they put out to the people, and there's been a lot of information out there in front of the people, it's just no one ever took the time to piece it all together. Just like if actually someone sat down and analyzed all the films and the images that were taken that day, you could see all this evidence for yourself. But they was trying to cover up so they don't start another war, because we already had the Korean War going on. I mean, the Vietnam War, excuse me. The Vietnam War was already going on. They had the Cold War going on. Then they had this other, the Day of Pigs they was doing at the same time.
Yeah,
they had all this going on. And if they prosecute and start going after Russia and the KGB for what they've done to Kennedy, it would just start a big out massive war where there'd be nuclear bombs all over the place. So
But what about the Cuban Missile Crisis? Kennedy stood up to who was it? Not Gorbachev, but oh, come on. Who was the prime?
Castro?
No. The Russian premier at the time.
Russian?
Yeah, that's how significant that guy was.
Right,
Kennedy stood up to the Russians, and they backed down. You had Stevens in the United Nations who stood up and told the Russians.
But see, that's a perfect plot. See, they backed down, so that eliminates them. Because, like I said, when I found the information I found, that's been in front of the public's eye for all these years, and I could piece it together. That's why I say the government had to know who it was, because the pure simple fact of it is this information pinpoints of who was behind it. Everybody wanted us to start war against Cuba during that time because of what Oswald did, because Oswald kept on saying, he's a Marxist, he's for fair play, Cuban communities, and everybody's sitting there thinking Cuba did it. And then you got these other people come out and say, well, no, Cubans did it, the mob did it, then Lyndon B. Johnson did it, our own government did it, the CIA, the FBI, had all these opportunities, all these people supposed to take out JFK, except for the people that really took him out was the KGB, but they overlooked all that.
What about the Warren Commission?
Well, the Warren Commission, I think they just put it all together, what they could find, and just throw it out there. They did a sloppy job in doing it. because, like I said, when I took on the case, I've read a lot of stories myself, heard a lot of eyewitnesses' claims, and a lot of documents you could see was falsified. So I said, well, the only way I'm going to actually find out actually what happened that day is I'm just going to base it on what I can find in the films and images, see what they tell me. And that's when I found the gunmen on the grassy knoll. You can see them taking their shots. There's other images showing them with their rifles, having the rifles in their hand. The gunman on the second floor, you can see the rifle in his hand. You can see the shots taken from another film, the Hughes film. You can see him taking the shots. JFK was shot 4 times. But see, Governor Connolly was supposed to be assassinated too, because I had 2 gunmen in 2 different locations take a shot over Connolly too, but he ended up surviving.
Jack Ruby, where does he play into this entire scenario?
Honestly, he was just upset. That's where the mob came in. That's where the mob came into play by the way he assassinated Oswald. He comes in. That's what mob will do. If mob was going to take somebody out, they come right to the person and fire at him. That's how that story got started. But Jack Ruby, when I did research on him, he wasn't there to assassinate Oswald, as people puts it, because first, when they were supposed to move Oswald at 10 o'clock in the morning, Jack Ruby was still home. The only reason why he went downtown was to mail wire some money at the Western Union, was just right down the street from where they had Oswald. He was right down the street, and he actually got a ticket stamped of wiring money out to one of his dancers for $25. He got ticket stamped 3 minutes before he killed Oswald.
Wow.
So he wasn't in a rush. He was just mad because Ruby did like the Kennedys, and when he seen Oswald come out, he just snapped and shot Oswald.
How about the prosecutor in New Orleans, Mr. Garrison? Was he on the right track?
Mr. Garrison? He was on the right track somewhat, but like I said, he's based on the information that people is telling him, the stories and the documents that he's been reading. That's what he based his research on, and trying to prosecute Shaw because he thinks Shaw was behind it.
Right.
But then again, like I said, if you watch the Kennedy assassination, and you actually watch it by the films itself, not by reenactments or anybody else, you will see it was a military, what happened that day, it was a military action. Because you have 2 gunmen aiming at JFK at the same time. Then you have a gunman aiming at Governor Connolly. Kennedy gets shot 4 times. Then you have Governor Connolly being shot twice. And then you have these distraction shots to get people starting running around. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what the other distraction shots were, because those distraction shots was taken in, on the steps where 3 men were standing right there by the Pelagore, by the picket fence. A distraction shot struck there. Got 2 distraction shots that hit the manhole cover, concrete, which both of them bullet holes still can be seen today. You had 2 shots that hit into the grass area. You had 1 curb shot that hit where James Tague was standing. Then you had 1 shot that hit a sign that was on the lamppost. This is to get the people to scatter and run around up the hillside so the gunmen on the grassy knoll can blend in with the people as they're running up there, blend in with them, and get out into the parking lot.
So you're convinced, based on the research that you did, the films that you watched, the documents that you have read, that President John F. Kennedy was assassinated by the KGB?
Yes.
All right. So because why?
Well, see, like I said, if you look at the films and stuff and you do background checks even on the people, just like, to me, when you do research or an investigation, as you know, everybody's a suspect.
Yes.
Until you eliminate them. Mr. Zapruder. I'm not saying he was a part of it, but when you look at the facts that we could see, like, he was the only one that was filming on that side of the street. Another fact, the gunman was right behind him, no more than 12 feet away from him. He was, now when the shots was fired behind him, Mrs. Sessman took her hands up, which we can see in the Orville Nix film. She takes her hands up and covers Mr. Zapruder's ears.
Mm-hmm.
Why did she do that? When Mr. Zapruder was done with this film, he jumps off the wall, walks away like nothing happened. He's going to go ahead. He went to the TV station. He was one of the first people they interviewed there. He was on live TV. He holds up his fist, and then he coughs, and then he brings up his fist and holds his fist up like a Russian hammer symbol. Same thing Oswald did when they brought him into custody, and they was taking pictures of him. He was holding one fist up,
so
in handcuffs.
So am I correct in understanding that, once again, based on the research that you've done, based on the films that you've watched, based on the documents you've read, number one, Lee Harvey Oswald was the man that was coordinating this entire operation?
Yes.
Lee Harvey Oswald was a member of the KGB?
Yes.
And that it's possible that Zapruder himself was part of this entire scenario?
Yes, because even his family migrated from Russia when he was a little boy.
Okay.
Okay.
Who,
his family migrated from Russia.
who in your opinion, LeRoy, was responsible for the death of Officer Tippit?
I never really looked into that much.
Okay.
I mean, there was eyewitnesses that did state that Oswald was the one that shot him.
Yeah.
And he was in a lineup, and they did find gun residue on his hand. So I would say yes, he did shot Officer Tippit.
In your opinion, during your research, was there any evidence that was found in the book depository that directly linked Oswald, besides to the crime itself?
Yes, well, see, the sniper's nest, they found his palm print and his fingerprints on the boxes in the sniper's nest. The rifle, which was a decoy rifle, which is a car-cannon rifle, he did not use that. But he still placed it there as a decoy rifle by the steps, which had his palm print on it as well. Here in just last year, my friend Guy Cooper was watching a video where he's seen images from the National Archives that shows the bullet casings. He contacts me and says, LeRoy, he says, looks like there's fingerprints on these bullet casings. So I said, okay, I took a look at the video. So I made some contacts. We ended up getting first-hand images from the National Archives of these bullet casings. On two of the bullet casings, I found a fingerprint. So I said, well, I'm going to eliminate Oswald and see if this was his print or not, so we can eliminate it and see whose print this is. I tested every one of Oswald's fingerprints against it, and one didn't match. It was his thumbprint. His right thumbprint was pressed on two of the bullet casings.
How did you get a copy of Oswald's fingerprints?
Oh, you can go to you can get them off the archives. It's in Dallas Police Reports.
Okay.
You can get a copy of his fingerprints.
This is, like I was saying earlier, this is a mystery that has haunted hundreds, if not millions, of people over the years. Do you think the truth will ever come out? Besides you publishing your books, and I don't understand why somebody hasn't picked up your books and just run with them based on the evidence and the photos that you have in your books.
Well, they're trying to push me out.
Really?
Okay, they're trying to push me out. Yeah, because all the researchers, all top researchers have seen the images that I found. They've seen my post, but if it don't match theirs, they don't want anybody to know about it. To me, it doesn't matter. Just like I tell people, if they don't believe my research, that's fine. I don't care. That's their opinion. But believe in what you can see. Don't believe what you're told or what you read. Believe in what you can see. Because like when I point out the gunman and the shelter and the Mormon photo, there's actually people that actually went online, looked at all different copies of the Mormon photo, and said, yeah, you could see both of the men. The Nix film, when I point out the frames of the shots, where you can see the two shots come from the shelter, they looked at me and said, yes, you can see them in every copy of the film. that's the key fact. Once you find the location and you know where to look at, then when you start analyzing the films and you start analyzing the images, you know a location to look at, and you can see if there's any evidence out there that pinpoints shots coming from the grassy knoll. There's none coming from the picket fence, period. But when you find a gunman in shelter number 3, which is behind Mr. Zapruder, and here is Bill Newman saying the shots came from behind him, shelter number 3 was behind him. So this eyewitness is telling the truth because he said the shots came from behind him. The images showing the gunman behind him. They're showing the shots coming from behind him. So everything matches right there.
All right, stand by, LeRoy. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. Man, has this hour ever gone by fast. Exonation, LeRoy Blveins Sr. is my special guest this hour. www.jfkreport.weebly.com is his website. And LeRoy and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Fascinating books, fascinating story, fascinating man. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Whatever you do, don't go away. Exonation, LeRoy Blveins Sr. is our special guest this hour. He is the gentleman who has written a number of books, including, the JFK Assassination Report, 13 Shots, the JFK Assassination Colorized Images, JFK Assassination Evidence and Other Gunmen, and Who Murdered JFK. His website is jfkreport.weebly.com. How far in advance did Oswald and those involved in the assassination know the president's route?
Well, according to the people and the reports and stuff, they said it was only a day or so, but actually it was like 4 weeks. They knew the route.
Is it possible they were given information from a leak?
Could be. I can't say there wasn't, but like I said, there's no evidence to prove it, but it was printed in newspapers.
How did Lee, I find it almost amazing that somebody was able to see Lee Harvey Oswald enter the theater and that the police responded there so quickly. Was there anything behind that entire story?
There could have been, okay, because like I said, by his route and what he did, just like the spotter that was, which I call a spotter, that was on the corner of Houston and Elm, where he sat there and gave a full description of what Oswald looked like and what he had on from the 6th floor window. He said there's gunmen up there. That's why the police ran up there, because he said the gunman was up there, and this is what he had on, this is what he looked like, and everything else. To me, yeah, they was trying to set up Oswald at the same time.
So they were going
that was a backup plan.
So they were going to also put the blame on Oswald to keep the blame on themselves, like a double cross, basically. Or did Oswald know that this was going to happen?
Yes, he knew it was going to happen. But that's why he wasn't worried about it so much, because the Carcano rifle was ordered on his other name that he uses, A. Heidel. That's what he ordered Carcano rifle with. And that was a decoy rifle, so he never thought it was going to trace back to him, but he wasn't smart enough to take his fake ID out of his wallet.
I see.
He actually left it in there.
The weapon that he actually fired at President Kennedy, would the shots have gotten away in the time frame that no one else could use, get the rifle to fire at the president at this very fast pace?
Yeah, well, see, Oswald only fired 2 rounds. They say it was 3 rounds, but he actually fired 2 rounds because that's the only 2 shots that came in from the left. From the right exit going to left. And between both of them shots was 5.60-something seconds. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I know it's 5.60-something seconds. But he was actually using a Springfield rifle. He did not use the Carcano rifle.
LeRoy, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show. I wish you much continued success. I'd love to have you back on in the future because there's so much more to discuss in the other investigations that you've done and the research that you've done. But until that time, I want to thank you once again for taking time out of your schedule to join us, and let our listeners know where they can get copies of your book from.
All 4 of my books are on Amazon.com. All they have to do is type in JFK books, paperback, and you'll find all my books on there.
LeRoy, take care of yourself, my friend. Once again, thanks for joining us tonight.
All right, thank you.
Exonation, LeRoy Blveins Sr., www.jfkreport.weebly.com. Once again, you heard it right here. Lee Harvey Oswald was responsible for the group of those involved in killing President Kennedy in Dallas, Texas. It was a KGB-sanctioned hit. And there you've got it. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast network in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.